So let's start by looking at some of the materials we're going to need to perform the exercises. Let's take a look at the nibs, since they're the main stars in this technique. So let's start with the ball-pointed nib. This nib creates very smooth lines and slides really easily on the paper. It's robust, which means that it's less flexible than the other nibs. Because of it, it creates thick, steady lines and even strokes. If you have a heavier hand, it might be a good one to try out. Then let's move on to the Gilo. The Gilo I have here is a 404, and they're known for being better for larger drawings because they can produce thicker strokes. They're quite flexible and work well in rougher surfaces. They have a really good thickness variation because of that flexibility. They make rougher, crisper lines, but are very scratchy. Next, let's check out the crow quill. This quill has a huge thickness variation. It works best on smooth paper since it's very scratchy. It's a delicate pen and it creates extremely fine lines. But also, you can use it for lines that vary a lot from thick to very thin. Lastly, I wanted to mention the G pen. This is a Manga pen and it's not in the book, but it's durable and it's all around great. It creates thick, bold, even lines and slides nicely on the paper. It's super resistant. I've had mine for years and it's still going strong. It has medium flexibility, close to a ballpoint, but it feels a bit extra stiff. Next, let's check out some inks. The important thing to note and remember when buying your ink is that it must be water resistant and not acrylic. Acrylic inks are really great but tend to be quite permanent. So if they dry out between pen holder and nib, it might be really hard to remove your nib. They're also really hard to clean. The first ink I wanted to mention is Windsor & Newton's India ink. It's very easy to find, it's water resistant and bleed proof. It has a very glossy finish when dried and a very high viscosity. So it's definitely the thickest of the inks presented here. Zaintushi is this German brand that created this matte, medium body India ink. They offer different colors, which are very nice because they don't tend to lose their consistency or become more transparent. The sepia is a good option if you like to make your drawings less contrasty. It's fairly easy to find, especially in Europe. Lastly, I wanted to mention Knicker Comic Ink. It has a matte, flat finish, really nice flow, and dries super fast. The only downside of it is that it's pretty hard to find. I had to order mine from Japan, but if you can manage to get it, it's great. The last materials you're gonna need are paper towels, usually to clean and dry your nibs, as well as drying any accidents along the way. When using the nib for some time, ink starts drying at the tips, so it's good to give the nib a good swoosh in water and dry it straight after. There are many papers that work well with pen and ink. The all-time favorite is the Bristol board because it's very smooth and it helps the nibs glide without resistance. A paper I personally love is this Deleter comic paper. It's easy to find on Amazon. Unlike most Bristol papers, it's thin enough to use with inkjet printers, to ink over a sketch that you prepared in your computer and print it out. When picking sketchbooks, there are a lot of options available. One I like is the Moleskine Art Plus. It's super smooth and has thick pages that don't bleed through. You can even do a light watercolor wash on top of your ink drawings. Another sketchbook I use for inks is this Heinmühl sketchbook. It has drawing paper, but it takes ink nicely. As you can see, I've put it to good use. Lastly, I recently got this Windsor & Newton sketchbook and it's lovely. Pages are very thin, but the surface is crazy smooth. It's perfect for using with ink and Copics, since it absolutely doesn't bleed through at all. And that includes all the basics in our materials, and pen and ink information overload. I hope to see you guys next week when we start the first batch of exercises. Thank you so much for watching and see you soon!